Hi there everybody, it's UK independent Stampin' Up demonstrator Helzie here from slimandstylish.stampingup.net. Thank you very much for joining me today. Today I have created this card. I love it. I've took inspiration from another Stampin' Up demonstrator, Martin from Martin's Mayhem, and I just really love the effect of this. It's for my mum's birthday and I can't wait to give it to her. I'm using the Beautifully Happy photopolymer stamp set. This is a brand new stamp set that will be coming out in the new Sale-a-Bration catalogue January and February. You can't purchase this stamp set, but you can earn it by spending £90 through my store. So if you like it, add it to your list, and then in January, have a look through our catalogue, have a look through our store, add £90 worth of products into your cart and you can get this for free. Okay? So we're going to be using this stamp set and this stamp set here, as well as the For a Very Happy Birthday just here. So this is the card we're going to be making. Isn't it cute? I am using Sahara Sand cardstock. You need a full A4 sheet of it. And I'm just going to be starting off by cutting that up. So what you're going to be doing is you want to cut at 14.85 and then cut that, score that 10.5. Don't get cutting it, score it. That's going to be our card base. And then the next bit we're going to do is we're going to cut this at 10 centimeters and then cut it again at 14.35 centimeters, and that will create you your mount for on top, and it will give you a little frame around the outside of it. Okay, so first things first, let's just score this. I would say burnish it, but my bone folder has gone for a walk. There we go. And put that to the side. We're going to need that in a minute, but first up we're going to be using the card. So I've got my two stamps, which is the big flower and the littler flower, and I'm just going to add a piece of scrap underneath so I don't get my grid paper all dirty, because we all know I hate doing that. And we're going to be using Stays On ink because we're going to be using our watercolour pencils for this one. Okay, so with Stays On ink, the best way to apply this onto your ink pad is to go down like that and to give a little twist of the wrist when you are inking it up, and you'll get then the best amount of ink onto your stamp. Okay, and then stamp it down. Now, just to pre-warn you, Stays On likes to stay damp for some time. So once you've inked this down, do not put your hands in it. Otherwise you're going to be in for a heck of a mess. Okay, and then I'm just going to use the little one to fill in this gap here. Okay, before inking the bigger one back up. And stamping that down in that direction. Just to sort of fill up the base of this card. You'll notice I'm pushing harder with this than the others, and that's because while Stays On is a bit inkier than the others, it can be a bit trickier than the Memento to get the whole of the ink on there, so just bear that in mind. Me and Stays On don't have the best of relationships because I'm too impatient to wait for it to dry, and therefore we get a bit inky. Right, lid on that. Both stamps out of the way, and there's our project ready to get going. So the first colours I've got here on my watercolour pencils are Granny Apple Green, I've got Old Olive, and I've got Garden Green. And I'm going to start off with Granny Apple Green. I'm going to go to this one here that I did first, and I'm going to put Granny Apple Green all over these leaves. I'm not being neat, I'm just getting the colour on there, and I'm pushing relatively hard. I want this to be bright, like really bright. Okay, and I'm going to come around, I'm going to do it on all of the bits that should have green on them. So not just the leaves, but sort of the base of these flowers as well. And I know what you're thinking, this is really unusual for me to be using watercolour pencils, and it is. I don't use them that often, half the time because I have to use Stays On, so Stays on is best with watercolour, the memento runs, and I've just told you we have a love-hate relationship. I love the effects you can create with watercolouring, but I'm just sometimes a bit impatient. I prefer my blends because I can get the sort of same effect, but quicker, easier, and I just feel I can take time enjoying it. However, when I do end up playing with watercolour, I actually find I enjoy it more. Don't tell the blends, I'll get upset. And when I saw Martin had done one just like this, and he'd done the watercolour onto, I think he might have used a darker cardstock than Sahara Sand, but it still looked beautiful. And I thought, you know what, I haven't done that for ages. So I'm going to take a bit of inspiration from him, and I'm going to use my watercolour markers. And that's where we are. So I'm pushing really hard on this, just for, so you know, it's probably the hardest I can push with the pencil. I just want to get this really bright colour onto the card. And I'm not sure if you can see from your angle, but I'm not going to the edges either. I'm going to be coming in a bit later with my blenders, and so I'm going to leave that to fade out. And I've missed a leaf just there. Let's just grab that one. And there we are. Right, next colour up is the Old Olive. So I'm going to be going in the middle of the leaves with this. And this is not looking good, is it? It's looking right messy. Anyone looking at this, I think she's never coloured anything before. That's okay. That's the effect. Because I'm going to be using the blender pens on this, you watch the magic happen. If you are familiar with our blender pens, you know exactly what's going to happen, and you know this is going to be safe. If you haven't, stay watching, because honestly, I think it's magical. There we go. Walk the way around. I'm just putting a bit of that dark colour on just to sort of create shading. And one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to put it on the same place in every leaf, because the sun shines in different ways, the leaves grow differently, they're not all uniform in nature. And then the garden green, this is a lot darker and it's a lot deeper green, so I'm not going to be using as much of it. I'm just going to be using it for a bit of tone, and that's all. So it's more been the Granny Apple Green and the Old Olive. The garden green is just to create just a slightly different tone in there. Okay, once that's finished, I'm going to move those out. I'm going to come in with Daffodil Delight, and for that there's nothing fancy. I'm just going to be colouring in the centre of the flowers. Nothing too hard or anything with that one. And then the next one up, I've got Flirty Flamingo, Rich Razzleberry, and Melon Mambo. Melon Mambo is the middle one now, because I changed my order as I put them down. So I'm going to be using the Flirty Flamingo just to get the colour on the page. You'll notice with this one, again, I'm not going all the way to the edge, slightly leaving more of a gap than I was with the green, because that's where my darker colour is going to go. I'm not pushing as heavy with this either, because these are soft, subtle flowers. I don't want them, whoa, we're here. Whereas I did really want the leaves to pop. So now for people with watercolour pencils, there's no trick to them really. Just get the colour on the paper, let the water do the work, and when it gets to, you know, blunt stage, normal pencil sharpener and sharpen. The one thing I will say is you don't want to do that thing that we did as kids where you want to get the sharpest pencil. Sharp watercolour pencils, I don't like. They leave scratchy marks on the paper, they make it uneven when you're colouring in. It's very hard to get the same sort of colour and tone going. So go to sort of like a medium length on them, don't go all the way. It is what I found, otherwise they're just scratchy. I mean, I suppose it depends how you hold your pencils and which angles, but I find they go scratchy. So Melon Mambo now, and my Melon Mambo, I'm going into the edges and pulling it just down the sides. So that's why I left a bit more of a gap on these ones at the edges, because they're going to be slightly darker, because that is where they're going to have faded and they're going to have got knocked by the others, and the birds are going to have hit them and the bees are going to have attacked them, and they're just a bit worse for wear on the edges. So that's why I've gone a bit darker out there. And again, you don't have to worry that these aren't blending together, because we've got the magic coming up. And finally, and you don't want to again stress too much on the dark colour here, because like I said, you know, these are pastel flowers, but the rich raspberry, which is lovely and dark, I am just adding that through on a few of the leaves just to create some depth and tone. I'm not going overboard with the rich raspberry. Sort of very similar to what I did with the garden green earlier. Okay, so once you've done that, you want to bring the blender pen in. Okay, and start off with a darker colour. So I'm going to start off with the leaves. I'm just going to drag this colour straight through, and hopefully you can see the magic starting to happen. It's picking up all the colours and it's just blending them into one and creating a marvellous tone. It is. Every time I do this, I think to myself, why don't you just do this more often? Because it's such a satisfactory thing to do, is to get this looking messy and then going over the top and making it all sing. It is good. I don't know why I don't do it more often, by the way. I really should. I think I'm going to hold you guys on my YouTube accountable for this. I've said I want to do this more often, so when you keep seeing me using blends, which you're bound to because that's all I use, leave me a comment below and go, oi, what's happened to that watercolouring you said you were going to do? Go back to doing that. Give me a prod. Hold me accountable. Because it really is. I mean, you can still see all of the colours, which is great, because that's what adds the tone, that's what adds the, otherwise there'd be no point putting all three of them on. But it just makes them all go together so nicely. It's very clever, really, and it's relatively inexpensive. The watercolour pencils are not pricey. There's 2 different packs, so you get a range of different colours in them, so it's not like if you pick one you only get reds and all the rest. Blender pens are not expensive. So there we go. That's that. Once you've finished with that colour, you can either use the other end of the thing, or you can just mark it off like that, get it completely neutral and go again. So this time I'm going to play with the pinks. Hopefully you can see what that's doing. It's just sort of, well, exactly the same as what it did to the leaves, but in different colours really. Try and go in the same sort of direction. So I like going in circles, but when you're going in your circles, don't go frontwards, backwards, left, right, up, down. Just try staying in the same direction and you'll get a lovely smooth finish. What also works with this, if you wanted to, I didn't want to, I wanted to go nice and subtle and make it sort of look vintagey and cute. What you could have done is you could have used your Wink Stella pen. That would have worked, and it would have dragged the colour out the exact same way that my blender marker is. However, it would have made it all beautiful and glittery. Why don't you give that a try if you're looking for something new to do, because that is always looks beautiful, but it just isn't applicable to this card. Now, if I'd have done this card on sort of shimmery whisper white and was going for an ultra modern clean type look rather than sort of the vintagey look, I'd have definitely given that a try, because that would look beautiful. Okay, there's that finished. I'm just going to grab my paper again, wipe the pink off. Because it's lighter, it's not as hard. And then I'm just going to grab the yellow and just colour that in. Okay, next up, I'm going to crinkle the corner of my card. So I'm going to grab it and I'm just going to roll it. I'm going to roll it back and forwards a couple of times, and it's going to look really messy and you're like, what's she doing? But you just really want to weaken this area of the card. Okay, and really get it curling like that. Once you've done that, you can go in with your nail and you want to pull the card apart. I can't really see under the light actually what I'm doing. There's a few shadows going on my desk because I have lights on both directions, and by me putting my hand in there, I've messed it up. But there we go. So you want to split the card so that you have one bit there that curls and one bit there that curls, so you have two nice curls in it. Okay, and hopefully you can see what you're doing when you do it at home. And then I'm grabbing my Whisper White, and I'm going to be using the re-inker for this, so I'm just going to pop myself a little tiny bit of the re-inker in. And you're going to want your watercolour marker for this. And I'm not going to be adding any water into there because that's as dark as I want it. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to grab some butterflies and put them on my card. Okay, so to start off with, I'm going to colour my butterflies in. Now, if you do this, be prepared, they're not going to stay that gorgeous white, and they're not going to go first time around either. You're going to have to keep coming back, topping it up, and then in the end buff polish it off and you'll get a light sort of whitewash white. Okay, so now you want a little bit of water in there, not much, just a teeny tiny bit. Grab your blender pen and splat. Get a good load of white ink on there. If you're not happy with how you've done it, you can pop a few more dots on in different areas by just using your brush. Try and go in the same direction as what your splatter marks are. So if you're going like that, your splatter mark's going in that direction. Try and use your brush in that direction when you add more on. And then it'll look natural and not man-made. Okay. Once we've done that and you're happy with the amount you've got on there, you don't need loads, it's going to dry a lot lighter as well. You can go back over your butterflies. Like I said, you're going to have to go over these a couple of times and it won't dry. You need to actually get your hand in the end and wipe it off, or a cloth, and it'll just leave it with a whitewash look. It'll be beautiful, but it just does take some time. So finally, I'm going to be using my Tuxedo Black. You could stay with Stays On, but you know how much I love it. And I'm just going to add my sentiment for a very happy birthday on there. And finally, I'm going to bring back in my card base from earlier. And I've got my card and I'm going to adhere one to the other, okay? So as this is still wet and I haven't waited for it to dry, I'm actually going to, I was going to say adhere the base of the card, but that was just asking for a mess, wasn't it, really? I mean, I can be messy without trying to be messy, so that was really just asking for a mess. Just pop the glue on there. Turn it over and adhere it onto the cardstock. Like that. Give it a few minutes, colour over those butterflies again, and like I said, once you've done that sort of 3 or 4 times, take a cloth to it and it's just going to give them sort of an off-white type look. And there is the finished card. What do you think? Hopefully you love this new stamp set. I love it too, and I can't believe it's a free stamp set. How exciting is that? Hopefully my mum likes the card for her birthday, fingers crossed. Thank you all for joining me. Everything I've used today is available at slimandstylish.stampinup.net. If you do want a copy of the new catalogues, give us a shout and I'll pop them in the post for you. and I will see you all again soon. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe, leave me a thumbs up, say hello, and I'll see you all soon. Bye everyone. I hope you've enjoyed today's project. All items that I have used on this video are available to purchase from my store www.slimandstylish.stampingup.net. Alternatively, if you would like a copy of our catalogues, please send me an email to slimandstylish@live.co.uk or leave me a comment below and I'll get in touch with you. I upload regular content to this channel, so if you do enjoy watching my tutorials, please make sure that you have subscribed and rang the bell to get notifications when new videos go live. Thank you for joining me and have a lovely day.